Waiting for that minute hand.
You're good.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the July 12th, 5:30 p.m. workshop. Before we get going, I'd like to introduce everybody to our new city manager, Jordan Wheeler. He's been here 5 days, and you have anything you want to say before we get going?
Not really, just thank you. It's been just a great experience so far. Staff have been great. Everyone's been so friendly, welcoming. I've really enjoyed, meeting with you, the city council and staff, and look forward to meeting other members of the community and being out there and just really enjoy listening and learning about this great place. So thank you.
All right, enjoy the good times while you can.
Yeah, the honeymoon.
This is the honeymoon period. No. All right, we got a pretty full workshop with 3 pretty big items. So let's get right to the agenda. Gary, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, and I'll stick around until I get too tired, and then I'll go.
Okay. You're more than happy, more than welcome to do that. We totally understand you're 3 time zones away. So first up is the Explorer Sisters Progress Report. Scott.
Oh.
Your name and address, please.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
All the stats.
Yeah. How's it going?
It's going well. Mayor, councilors, Jordan, nice to have you here. Thanks for having me this evening. I'm just here to provide a brief update on Explore Sisters and what we've been up to over the last couple of months. For anyone that doesn't know, my name is Scott Humpert. I'm the executive director and only employee of Explore Sisters, so we're lean and mean. But I just want to give you kind of a snapshot of what we've been up to, where we're going, and also meet the milestones of our city contract progress report. So I did submit a letter with our budget and everything, so hopefully you had a chance to at least read through the high-level stuff. But today I just wanted to touch on a couple of things, and I've got my paper copy, so I don't have to crank my neck. But touch on the milestones of the contract so far, talk about what we've been up to the last 6 months, the business plan that we've been developing kind of behind the scenes, the draft version of that, go through the highlights, where our budget's at, and then kind of next 6 months and beyond. With that, I'm just going to briefly jump into the milestones. We've met all the milestones to date. You'll remember back in December, that was our first report. The report was we hired an executive director, so we had staff, which was great. And then our second report was due in March of 23, and that's when we delivered our draft policies, financial policies and procedures, as well as a little bit more detailed draft budget than what we provided in that December timeframe. And now we're here to talk about our business/strategic planning, as well as an adopted budget that we're using to operate for the 2023 year, as well as some estimates for the 24-25 years. So for the last 6 months, there's been a lot of kind of quiet things happening in the background. A big part of that is just getting staff onboarded and orientated to the community. So that's obviously me. With a lot of community meet and greets, I've had countless meetings with folks around the community, which is great. We'll continue to do so, but that's how we learn about our stakeholders, our partners, and the community needs, is by just getting out and about. So we've been doing a lot of that. You probably heard me talk a little bit about just organizational health, making sure that Explore Sisters is a viable organization to carry out its work. So we've been focused on really romantic things like policies and procedures, and getting the office as a usable space, outlining our professional services so we have bookkeeping ability and all those wonderful things that a startup organization needs to do. And then we've been looking at our strategic planning. You probably know we worked with the U of O Sustainable City Year program and their nonprofit management students to help develop a strategic action plan to inform our strategic planning and our business planning. So that wrapped up early June, and we got the final deliverable from them, and our business plan has that work incorporated into it. We've also been working on our tourism branding. I developed, brand isn't the right word, but I called it that anyway, a temporary brand, which really means that logo that you saw at the beginning of the slides, just to have some visual for the organization. It's fairly neutral, so hopefully nobody has fallen in love with it, so we can move on with the real deal once we have that done. And we have hired a branding agency that specifically works in the tourism industry with DMOs and destinations to develop these brands. And they've done that throughout Oregon. Their principal worked at Travel Oregon for many years. Their designers and creatives were out of Wyden and Kennedy. So a very small but mighty team with them. So I think they're a great fit for what we're doing here and have the right experience to see that forward. We've been doing some light marketing activity. A lot of the budget this year has been devoted to startup one-time things to really get the organizational going. But we've been focused on building our own channels. So we want to make sure that people have understanding of the exploresisters.com URL. I'm going to build a temporary website so that we can capture that audience. We've signed up for all our social media channels and make sure that we have those in-house so we can grow those so that when we actually have robust content to put out there, there's an audience to actually talk to behind those channels. We've done some limited paid advertising. We want to really wait until we have some more shored up strategy before we invest too many dollars, but there's opportunities like with Travel Oregon or Visit Central Oregon where they produce an annual visitor guide, and that's published once a year. And if you miss that, you're out of that publication for a year plus. So we really wanted to make sure we were included with those that have those really highly targeted audiences that we can piggyback on. So we've done a few things with paid advertising through them. And then a lot of just partner engagement, letting people know how they can get involved with the organization, us listening to their needs so we can work that into our strategy. And so we've been working with a lot of partners to really find out where we can meet them to help them do what they need to do and support the community. And then finally, we're working to put together our content library. We didn't have anything as far as photos and videos when we walked in the door here, so we're starting to work with local photographers to build that up. So when we do start to do our full marketing program, develop a full website, we actually have content to plug into all that. So the business plan, we're at the draft phase. The board has not adopted it officially yet, but we do have a finished draft of that plan. And the real high level goal of that is really to guide us over this first 1 to 2 year period. It's a strategic plan, but it's not what I would consider, that 5-year, 10-year visionary type of planning. It's more the nuts and bolts of getting us through the growth period. And the strategies that we have within this plan and also within future plans will ensure that Sisters is positioned as a sustainable destination. And you're going to see this word a lot in what I do, not just here, but also moving forward. And you'll find that balance between the economic impacts of tourism and the local livability. That's key to everything that we're trying to do. And I know it's very important to the community to try and find that balance within those two things. So kind of out of we had some of this prior, but it really formalized itself a little bit more during the U of O Sustainable City Year work, where they worked with the board to come up with, and I will stress that these are working vision, mission, and value statements. They are not the final deal, but they give us something to really guide us and point us in the right direction. And we'll take on a more robust strategic planning process later on that will really flesh these out in fine detail. But even at that vision level, the high level, you can see that word balance in there again. That's part of our DNA. That's part of everything that we're going to do. So I won't go through and read all of these, but you can see that livability really kind of permeates all the parts of what we do, from vision, mission to all those value statements as well. So we thought, it's a good idea to kind of outline our roles and responsibilities as a DMO. A DMO can do a lot of different things. They can't do everything, especially with the staff of one. So to really kind of rein that in and look at those core areas of work that we want to focus on, and kind of the level above that are the lenses that we look through when we do this work. And a lot of this has come from the state and regional level to create alignment in tourism throughout Oregon. And it's looking at work through this economic, social, and environmental lenses. And that economic piece really is the prosperity piece of tourism, the impacts that tourism has. The social piece is that equity and livability piece of the community. And that environmental is that sustainability, or what we could hope to call regenerative, where somebody leaves a place even better than when they found it, not just the same. So that's kind of the lenses that we look through. And I won't read, you back up one. There we go. I won't read all of these, but these are kind of within those lenses. These are our 4 key kind of focus areas. They're broad, can have a lot of different work underneath them, but first and foremost, DMOs are economic development agencies. We do it differently. We do it through tourism, but at the end of the day, we're trying to pass on that economic benefit to the community, understanding that it comes with impacts and that balance thing again, which shows up in that destination management role and responsibility, which again could mean a lot of different things, but that's where you can really start to tick away at that messaging, those sustainable pieces, and work in that, how do we address the impacts that tourism has in these communities. Obviously marketing and brand stewardship is a big part of what we do to really set the perception and the reputation that Sisters has in the consumer field around travel. So that's a big part of what we do as well. And then you'll see it time and time again where data and analytics and understanding the why behind what we do to make sure it's informed, to make sure that we can track our successes, whatever that looks like in terms of those measurable performance indicators. So that's a big part of how we plan to operate. And then under those roles and responsibilities, especially within this first 1 to 2 year period, we've identified some strategic objectives, and all of those, kind of as my little chart shows, feed back up to our mission. And 1 and 2 are frankly interchangeable. These aren't in really priority order, but those are the 2 big ones. It's that destination marketing piece, which will have the stewardship of the branding, development of the permanent brand this year. We'll put into place an interim marketing plan while we're building that longer term big picture strategy that's more campaign driven after the brand launches. And then community and stakeholder and community engagement, like I said, is equally important as we build our organization, and to make sure that we clearly and effectively communicate with our partners in the community. We collaborate with them and find opportunities to work together. And also we look at ways to bring people together, to convene them where we can find commonalities. And Jordan can attest to the VIT group that we sat through today is a great example of collaboration across different industries, forest service, fire, tourism, all that stuff is at the same table talking about that long-term vision for Sisters. So finding ways that we can continue to convene with our partners and community. Again, there's that data and research piece in this first year or two. It's really understanding who our visitor is, why they come, where they come from, so that when we go into that strategy of marketing, we have a plan to address. We don't have money to talk to everybody, but we can get it more specific and really be highly targeted with that money. Understanding the impacts that tourism has economically, environmentally, and making sure our partners have access to that data too, to help inform their own decision making is important as well. So that's a benefit I think we can provide to the business community here in Sisters. And then finally, again, that sustainable operation, making sure that we're here for the long term to help do this work and carry it out, to make sure we have strong governance, that we build financial stability around what we do. Taking a look at our staff capacity and how we might grow that over the next couple of years and what the opportunities are there. Making sure we take the time to do that strategic planning so we have that 5-10 year vision along with the marketing strategies that support all that. And then just transparency with everything we do. We want to make sure that folks understand who we are, why we do what we do, and the importance that it has on the community. And we're always open to listening and changing and pivoting and all that good stuff. So being transparent with everything we do is really important as well. And I won't spend too much time on this. You've seen the full budget. This is kind of a visual and abbreviated budget. And one thing I just wanted to point out briefly is in our 23 adopted budget, you kind of see our 3 core areas, which are admin, marketing, and our reserve. A lot of this is reflective of startup costs in starting a brand new organization. So to develop an operating reserve, to make sure that we have these one-time setup fees. We're not going to be buying office furniture every year, hopefully, things like that. And if you look at the 24 estimated budget, you see a shift. That reserve goes away because according to our policies and procedures, we've built a 6-month operating reserve so that if a COVID comes our way, we don't immediately have to run for the hills. But also that marketing piece overtakes that administrative side of things, and the core of our budget is being fed into marketing and programs and development as much as we can, starting with the year 24 and building on that, because those one-time fees are then transitioned into more programming, and the reserve funds don't need to be there every year. Those can go into programming. So we start to see more money available for the management and marketing pieces of things. And then finally, just to touch briefly on kind of some of our main initiatives for the next 6 months, going back to that branding thing, by the end of the calendar year, we should have a finished brand. We have a survey out right now that's to our stakeholders and business partners to help inform the work on that. So we're not just doing that in a silo. The website, I mentioned building a temporary one. I would hope to have a more robust permanent destination site by the end or early in 2024, so that when we launch our marketing campaigns, we have something legitimate to send people to, and that it's the way we want it to look and feel and read and all that good stuff. That content library, we'll have a good start to that. We have some budget money in the next year to kind of finish the initial creation of that. It's an ongoing thing, but between this year and next year, hopefully we'll have a good solid library to rely on for content. And then building that long-term, marketing strategy to where we can get to the point where we're executing a long-term branded campaign, not just an interim plan of little things here and there, social media and all those little things we can afford to do now, based off of campaign creative that we've created under that branding and content library for that matter. And then I mentioned the strategic planning. This is that long-term strategic planning. So kick off that sometime in this budget year to really look at the 5 to 10 year visioning of the organization, the more aspirational goals and strategies, and how we get there beyond just kind of the nuts and bolts of a healthy organization and all that good stuff. And identifying what our measures of success are, because that's not as straightforward as it's been in the past. That heads and beds thing was very simple to measure, kind of an antiquated way of looking at it, but measuring the sentiment of a community is important, but challenging to do that in a meaningful way. So figuring out what those different measures of success are for us and how we execute our work is important. And finally, seeking out grant opportunities so that we can grow our budget in different areas or offset expenses and start to diversify a little bit beyond just the TLT money, finding other ways to make the organization grow and box above its weight a little bit. And I think there's some opportunities out there with Travel Oregon and the tourism industry, but also through folks like Ford Family Foundation and Roundhouse and other opportunities like that. So we'll explore all of that as we move forward. And with that, I'll stop yammering and answer any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. Before we get to questions, the one thing I wanted to bring up as the board member advisory role that I have is that Scott here with Explore Sisters is not doing this in a vacuum himself. He's actually doing what's been directed by the board itself, and the board is highly engaged. It's got great community members that we already know. They're setting themselves up for long-term success, not short-term, as Scott mentioned, and they're actually setting themselves up to have a robust board that rotates with other community members in the future, so it's not the same 6, 7 people doing it for the rest of their lives. That's not what they want. That's not what the community needs, and so I take a very, very light hand role of mostly listening and just listening and watching and giving very minor comments, usually my rah-rah types when I'm on when I'm at the meetings. But it's really fun to watch. It's fun to see it grow, and I'm excited to hear what you guys think and the questions that you guys have. Did you have one?
Yeah. What you have presented is important, and I've been on startups and involved in them, and so I recognize that process. But give me a little color, and I'm talking about when you approach businesses or stakeholders or whatever. How do you explain what you do and how you're doing it? And do they understand? Are they welcoming or are they concerned? What's the feeling? Do they understand that it's somewhat of the role that the chamber used to do and it isn't anymore? How are you received?
Well, it depends on how much time they have in terms of the story I tell them, because I can talk. But in general, I think it's supportive. Like, I think everybody is on board. I think there's still some education to do behind the understanding of what our role is, especially when you look at more traditional roles through chambers or other tourism organizations where it was solely the marketing piece. And I want to talk beyond the marketing. That's why we lead with things like the balance and livability of the community. And once folks hear those words, especially first, their ears perk up to where it's like, okay, this isn't just about, more people in the summer and heads in beds and things like that. There's a deeper picture going on. So it does take a little bit of time, and, you might not check every box the first time you meet with somebody. I've met with folks several times as they come to not just meet me, but come to understand the organization and the role that we're going to play in the community. So it's going to be a constant education piece. I think there's opportunity through our strategic planning process to really bring people closer into the fold so that they have ownership over the things that we do, because what we're doing is not just for Explore Sisters, it's for the community of sisters. And so we really need that participation from, everyone from the resident up to, the business owners and other partners and stakeholders here that have a vested interest in tourism. So, anecdotally, for the most part, it's been a positive. I think it's also there's a little bit of wait and see in there too, of like, prove it type of thing, and we're ready to do that. But I think the opportunity is there. People are excited for that, and especially again when we talk about the balance and the livability thing, that's where they really start to, I think, get excited.
Thank you.
Susan?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
So on the planning, because you're the only one, what is your plan for hiring? What kind of resources are you looking for? How many? And is that reflected in the budget?
It's not reflected in the budget just yet. Couple ways to go about it. I'm definitely not an advocate of capacity building through grant funding. When the grant funding goes away, you lose the capacity. I've been a casualty of that in the past life, where you have a 3-year grant, you got a year extension, and after that it's so long we can't afford it anymore. So I really want to avoid that road. I want sustainable funding. I think probably a good fit for us out of the gate is to engage in the U of O RARE program. A lot of organizations have had success with bringing folks in from that program. It's about a $25,000 investment from the host agency that partners with the program to bring, grad students out to do projects and programs in rural communities. And I think we have to be really intentional with that, make sure we have some good projects. But I know, the city had a RARE not too long ago, and she's still here and doing great work. So that's probably high on my radar. I just actually worked with Visit Central Oregon to help interview and recruit their RARE that's coming on this last year. So that gave me some experience going through the process in detail and understanding that a little bit more. So I think that'll be a good fit. But those particular resources aren't just an assistant for Scott to get the day-to-day work done. So those are really like project and programming things, which can set up some of that day-to-day stuff, but it's not kind of that assistant or coordinator type of position that we probably will need long-term. So, it's a struggle for a lot of DMOs to figure out beyond the bed tax, where do you get those revenues? Because we're moving away from membership-based organizations as a line of income, because we're here to represent the entire community. And so it's been a little bit tricky to figure out what those sustainable sources are that aren't coming from, our lodging partners through the TLT. But that's something I'm not alone in. And so the state's looking at that, the regions are looking at that, and certainly the small DMOs are finding ways to really increase that capacity, because they know we can do a lot with our time in addition to the money we have to put behind paid marketing and things like that.
Thank you.
Welcome.
How are stakeholders, especially in the tourism industry here, feeling about this kind of lag time in between when there was, some degree of tourism promotion, and until we can, the organization can kind of really have some outputs?
Yep. And again,
Everybody feeling about that?
I think there's some nerves behind it. I mean, that's probably natural. It's again kind of that balance thing that I talked about earlier in a different way, where we want to have a strategy before we really have a robust marketing program, but we also understand the need for that marketing to be there when nobody else is doing it, which is why we're looking at an interim plan that we have within the budget this year before we pivot to more of a branded kind of marketing campaign in the next budget year. So finding ways that we can be efficient and lean with some of those buys, going digital and through social to help, one, grow our channels, but also, we don't need to really be advertising now during the summer, but come fall and winter, that need starts to increase. And so figuring out how we can carve off some funds to put together a small winter, fall program that's kind of the precursor to the more year-round branded campaign that we're going to put into place. So I think people are receptive and understanding of that process, that it takes time, and my sense is that they'd rather have us get it right than just rush it through and throw money at things, because there just isn't a lot to go around. But at the same time, there is a little unease with like, well, who's going to be filling that void in the time being? And I think summer helps ease that a little bit because people are here, but as you know, like it's boom and bust. And in summer, we make all the money and then we have to weather the storm in the winter. So we're looking at finding ways to level that out in the long term, but it'll take time and strategy and maybe even seeking out additional resources to be able to have larger budgets to speak to audiences and things like that. But in general, I think people are understanding with a little bug in the back of their brain of like, just a little unease.
Yeah, okay. And are you hearing anything interesting when you are talking about stakeholders, especially people who have, tight connections to tourism, or, the revenue comes from tourism? Are you just anecdotally, are you kind of learning anything interesting or surprising in these conversations?
Nothing too surprising. I mean, it's a lot of kind of what I would have assumed. There's a lot of angst around that boom and bust in the summer of, if we don't have a good summer for some reason, what do I do in the winter? So, and then the workforce challenges that exist out there, whether that's the support side of things with housing or childcare, to retention and all those things. So I know that's a big deal for businesses operating in the hours that they want to be able to operate in. So, anecdotally, I think, we're hearing pretty good things from businesses. I hear more excitement than worry at this point. I think there's still a lot of questions about what we're going to do long-term, especially in that management space, that there isn't full understanding around, and we haven't fully fleshed that out yet either. So it's hard to explain that to people when we don't have all the answers internally ourselves. But in general, I think, the stakeholder community, the business community, feels good. I mean, you've seen the occupancies in the TLT collections, and they're stable. They've dropped down, come back to reality a little bit from the highs in the pandemic, but they haven't, dropped below previous levels or anything like that. So it's something we got to keep an eye on. But at this point, I don't have any, from my conversations, don't have any huge concerns with that community in terms of pressing issues, other than, getting that marketing back out into the world and building that new kind of Sisters or updated Sisters brand out there.
Okay, any other questions? Yeah, Gary, do you have any questions?
No, it's a pretty good presentation, enjoyable, good listening.
All right. And I guess my last question is, obviously the board itself has a pretty good cross-section of a lot of the businesses and stuff. They've been obviously working pretty hard. I've been trying to talk them up here and there, and I appreciate all their hard work, but you feel comfortable with how things are going just organizationally?
Considering they're all looking at the
They're all
back
right
of my
behind
head
you.
right now, it's great. No, I mean, it actually, to honestly answer your question, it is great. And the board was actually one of the things that sold me on this position, because they came off as an engaged board that cares about the community and that understood what they were getting into, not just kind of, oh, we have to use these funds for this thing, so let's, form this board or whatever. But they're all very engaged. They're a great cross-section of the community. For folks that don't know who's all on the board, I can quickly run down that. Our chair is Greg Willits from Five Pine. Our vice chair is Krista Monroe from Sisters Folk Festival. Our treasurer is Casey Might from Blazing Saddles. Secretary is Jesse Durham from Sisters Coffee. Nancy Conley, who was our previous counselor appointee, is now on as a citizen at large. Michael is our council appointed position. And then we also brought on Victoria Graves from Three Creeks Brewing a couple months back to round out the board at this point. So we've got a 9-member board, 7 voting members at this point, but it's a really strong cross-section of the community, and it's been great to work with them.
Yeah, and just to follow up on one last question, if they felt there was a need to pivot, you think they'd tell you, right?
I would hope so.
Well, we appreciate the presentation. Things are looking good, I think. Obviously, it's still early. Sometimes from this side, it feels a little slow, just because it is a little slow, but it's deliberate. It's not slow because things are going wrong. It's slow because planning takes time. And I appreciate your nod to the summer months. We're obviously really busy and things are going on, but we'll be looking forward to seeing some of the new stuff come out in the fall and the winter to try and see how the marketing, it'll kind of be a preview for future years, right? So we're looking forward to seeing that from you. Is there anything else, guys? Got anything, Jordan? You want to add anything?
No.
Okay.
Scott the other day.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. All right. Sisters Park and Rec District. Jennifer Holland. We have about a half an hour, so,
Mine's way shorter.
okay. Good. Just, I like to be the time check, so.
Well, I appreciate that. If I get to going, you can say, cut it off. Okay. Thank you so much to Carrie for inviting me here tonight to update the council on Sisters Park and Recreation District. As you guys know, it's been a crazy year for us, specifically the last 6 months. It's been just a roller coaster. And so I just wanted to update you guys on some of the key accomplishments this last year and then what we're looking forward into this upcoming year. So one of the things that I forgot to mention is this year we celebrated our 25th year as a special district, which is pretty exciting. We actually started off as a nonprofit and then were voted in to be a special district back in 1998. And so 25 years going strong, we're excited about that and looking forward to another 25 years and beyond. Some other key highlights from this year is we took over management of 3 community events. Obviously, 2 of those were 2 that had formerly been managed by the Chamber of Commerce and then 1 by Rotary. And so those were huge community events that collectively saw over 4,500 people in attendance. And obviously not all those people came from Sisters. And so it was fabulous to have those connections with the community. We've kind of made a shift in our events over the last few years where we had very focused, more revenue generating events to looking at events being more a gift to the community and more free access. And so it was perfect timing when we were approached to take over the tree lighting and the holiday parade, as well as the Halloween downtown trick or treating, because it's really in line with where we see community or where we see as a park and recreation district, the access to events. So, this past year, we also opened a free youth center. So that is for middle school youth, and it's over at the Coalfield Center. And it started off at 2 days a week, and it expanded to 4 days a week. And that had been something we've been trying to get going since after school return from COVID. And it was a long time coming. Of course, it was staffing shortages, which made it be a limitation, and which is why we only were able to start it at 2 days. But at the end of the school year, we were going with 4 days, and we saw over 500 sign-ins during that time. And we're gonna when you start a program kind of the after the fall kickoff, it's kind of hard to connect with kids right at the point. So we're gonna do a major fall kickoff to make sure that we have a lot of those kiddos engaged from the beginning of the school year. We're really looking forward to continuing that program. And what we've also been able to do is work with some of our partners and provide a outlaw summer adventure series. So usually kiddos don't want to come to a teen center during summer, but they sure want to do something fun like hiking or whitewater rafting. And so every Friday we're having these trips where we take teens out to do something fun and engaging. It's a way for us to keep connected with them over the summer. One of the things we also have heard over the last few years is that, our senior programs took a huge hit in COVID. It was one of those, we were allowed to do a bunch of youth programs, but we weren't really allowed to do a lot of senior programs. And so this past year seemed to really lift the Band-Aid off of that. And we have had a lot more engagement with our senior population. We've had new programs this year in addition to our lunch and learn program, our walking program, and then we've had new fitness programs that's evidence-based, like that's not what it's called, Better Bones and Balance, and just more ways to connect with our senior population. So we're really thrilled that we've been able to do that this year, and we will continue to do that into the future. We've also really seen a huge increase for the need of scholarships. The economy is, the economy is bustling, I guess, if you will, but inflation's huge because of it. and so because of that, it's difficult for people to spend some of those dollars on things like recreation. And so even though childcare and youth athletics and fitness are very essential, when you're looking at your bottom line, sometimes some of those things have to get cut. And so since fiscal year 2021, we have doubled our usage of our scholarship program. So back in 2021, we were only having about $10,000 spent on scholarships, and that's people utilizing those scholarship dollars. And this year we ended with 20,000. And this fiscal year, we actually budgeted for 40,000 because of the growth that we're seeing, because we never want fees to be a barrier to access. And so, in fact, the board has directed me to relook at our scholarship policy to see if there is a way that we can improve it so that folks who do have that higher need can get more assistance. So we're really proud of the fact that we've been able to A, better promote our scholarship program, but B, be able to address that need. And so that's been wonderful. You guys might have heard that we entered into a letter of agreement with the sister school district for the elementary school. Don't know. Yeah, I got like
What?
5 phone calls as soon as that article hit. So that's fabulous. That's part of what's been keeping me up at night is those negotiations and trying to figure out how we can best make that work. It's a great opportunity for the community. It's a great opportunity for our district. We would be consolidating 2 sites into 1. We would be able to house a majority of our youth athletics in the same facility of our staff, which currently they're all bussed out, if you will, to the school district facilities as they are. And so it's just a great opportunity, kind of as the school district is consolidating their stuff to one campus, we would be able to do that for a majority of our stuff as well. So we're very excited about that, and I'll speak more about what steps we're working on with that right now and what we'll be working on in the future at the next few slides. And then the other big win is we were able to pass or renew our local option levy at very high marks. We were super thrilled with that. It just goes to show that the support we have from our community as a special district and that we're on the right track. We've had such great support from our community the last few years. Even with COVID, we had people going out there saying, really appreciate what we were able to do, and they really showed up. And so we're excited that yay, it's passed, and B, it passed so high. So the next slide is really just to share some great pictures. Pictures worth 1,000 words, and these are some pictures from some of those events that we had the opportunity to take over this year. And we heard from every single event that we took over that it was well organized, that it was super fun, best attended, all these things. And so we look forward to continuing to grow those events and look for ways to be more efficient with those events too, which we'll talk about in the next slide. So coming up for this fiscal year, I don't know if you guys know this, I'm sure you do, but we have this amazing program called the Playground Program that we couldn't do without a partnership with the City of Sisters. And so that is a free program that runs for 5 to 6 weeks in the summer in city parks. And thanks to an MOU and an ongoing relationship with the city, we're able to continue that and do it at no cost to the community. And so this year, so far, we already have 60 kids registered for the 2 sites, and we anticipate that'll continue. It just started this week, and we are going onto our 3rd year. And so it's fabulous to see that this program, it was originally funded by grants, because during the last few years, there's been quite a few grants for kid programs, and so we were able to take advantage of those those grants for this program, but this year it'll just be funded out of our general fund. And we're excited to continue to offer it. And part of the reason why we're able to do that, or the reason we're able to do that, is because of the relationship with the city. So thank you, City Council and the staff here, for allowing us to run that awesome program. Another thing we're doing is, we offer youth athletics, and, we're not as small as Explore Sisters, but we are a small and mighty group as well. And so we really have to be strategic when we offer what programs. But one of the things that we've heard over the last year is that there really needs to be more opportunities for kindergartners to get engaged in programs. And so we have a new athletic supervisor, and he's been working with some families, and we actually kicked off a new a kindergarten soccer league, and we're exploring being able to do that with basketball as well. You can't do that with all sports because kindergartens aren't that coordinated, but you can do it with basketball and soccer. So we're excited to be able to expand our athletic offerings that way. We're also going to be, wait for it, combining the parade and the tree lighting into one awesome Saturday event in Sisters. So I will tell you from last year, it is incredibly difficult to operate two major special events back to back on a holiday weekend with a staff of 10 when you only have 2 staff that are salary, and it's very challenging. And I'm sure the city can appreciate that, because you guys all did amazing support with that. Your public works folks were out there both nights being able to help pull all that off. And so as we look to fiscal year 24, we're really trying to be more efficient and work smarter with how we do things. And so our vision is we will be combining those events into a Saturday. And so we'll start it with the parade, which will then end. So we'll be moving the parade. And then that parade will end at First Street Park. And then we won't just be the tree lighting, we'll have additional elements there to make it more of an event. Last year, we had people showing up an hour before the ceremony showed up. They wanted to know when the tree was going to be lit. They wanted to know all these things, and we want to embrace that. We want to provide activities. We want to engage with the local businesses that are down there and make it this huge celebration instead of this come see for 30 minutes, okay, go home. We want to just engage with them and really celebrate that. I don't know if we're going to be able to do fireworks, but maybe one year. So as we shift gears to the elementary school, we're in the middle of finalizing a feasibility study with that site. So we really needed to understand what we as a district would need to do to be able to actually operate out of that facility. And it really is coming down to bathrooms and parking. And so I'm actually very thrilled I was just sharing with Nancy that I just found out that our consultant got the bathroom calculation wrong, because up until 8 o'clock this morning, I was told we needed 18 additional bathrooms. But turns out that's inaccurate. So that's fabulous. So the board will receive that feasibility study next Tuesday, and then make recommendations for next steps after that, to which I don't really see any glaring reasons as to why we wouldn't move forward with the agreement. We would then finalize the lease with the school district, and then the next step is to conduct an outdoor use study. As I was kind of alluding to before, when our press release hit about the partnership or the pending lease agreement, my phone was blowing up with, pickleball, pool, dog park, community garden, all the things, and so our board is really wanting to make sure that we look at that site strategically, and not just going in and putting stuff here or there because we think it might make sense. So they really want to make sure that we're having an outside person lead that process that involves community engagement, because for so long it's really been, what are we doing with that building? It hasn't necessarily been, what are we doing with that acreage? And so that'll be a process that we hope to be doing late this fall. Then just, things that are always on our to-dos is continuing to expand our community partnerships. I don't know if you guys are aware of all the community partnerships that we do. This year, we were able to work with the health department and house their vaccine clinics. The construction over at the library actually has worked out very well for SPRD because we have had a lot of people coming to us to do meetings or the vaccine clinics. We are actually hosting a bunch of the library's programs that they're not able to host right now, so that's fabulous. And that has opened up a door to continue that relationship into the future. And then we currently have a great partnership with the movie house where we have our family movie nights as well. And that partnership will go into the fall, and then it takes a pause in the spring. And we're also starting a new partnership with Rotary to offer a Alzheimer's education series. So wonderful ways to connect with the community. And as we all know, we do better when we work together. And lastly, we'll look to increase programs and events to meet community needs. This community is growing, it's changing, their needs are evolving. What was true 4 years ago when I started is not true today. And so we all are always listening, and we want to be nimble so that we can serve our community. And so we are looking forward to the future. A little scared about it, but really excited and just excited to see where this all goes. So, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
All right. Thank you very much. Questions, Susan?
Yeah, I have one.
Yeah.
Are you thinking about having a contest to name the new building, the SPRD?
That's
Instead
a
of calling
great,
it
yeah.
the elementary school?
Well, we're definitely not going to call it the elementary school. That is a great question, and that'll be something that the board will need to consider. That had come up in passing. Will they? I don't think we could continue to call it the Cofield Center because that the building was named. That building was named after Tom Cofield for a reason, and so, and I have experience engaging the community for naming rights before, and so I think that'd be amazing. It'd be a great way to get community involvement for that facility. So we'll see what the board says. So
Money,
yes.
the big project ahead of the district. And so financially, where is the district at in taking that on? Or are you looking at, is this a lot more grants or donors, ramping that side up? Or is it a bond or a new levy or something? I mean,
That's a great question.
bounced around there?
Yeah, so when I started at the district, we were still in a position to where we were borrowing money to get from July 1 to when our tax receipts came in, which I guess is pretty typical for smaller districts. It really stresses me out that we had to do that. We are not in that position anymore, and we haven't been since that year. And we've actually not only stabilized our funding, but we've been able to put money away in a capital reserve, and we have financial policies now that ensure financial stability. And so we are in a lot better financial state than where we were a few years ago. As for the expense of that facility, it really remains to be seen as to what work will be done. So there's going to be some work that needs to be done to be able to make certain spaces usable, because we need spaces that are larger than just a classroom. So we'll need to remove some walls. But it's nothing that is not, it can be absorbed within our existing reserve for those projects. If we were to look at a massive remodel, or if we were to build something per se, a pool, there would be a lot of other things that would need to occur before that. We would have to consider one of the things that as a special district, we can't change our permanent tax rate. You have to dissolve and reform as a new district. And so part of how you can sell that to the community is by saying, you know, right now you don't have this, but if we reform at this rate, then you would get X, Y, and Z. And that would be a potential thing to do with the future of that facility. We also need to look at that arrangement with the school district, because right now it's a lease. So we as a district, we're looking at a 25-year lease, so we would recoup any of the remodeling that we put into it. But if we're looking at major capital need to have a bond to do projects, I don't think we would be able to do that unless we actually own the property. And so there are initial move-in construction, and then there's going to be, you know, 5-year, 10-year things, but when we would look for grants for some of those when they come available. You know, for the outside stuff, we could potentially we could apply for the local government grant program. For the inside stuff, that would probably have to be absorbed within our reserve budget.
Okay, yeah.
So you could maybe perhaps look into putting solar on top of the roofs to save on your electricity?
Yeah, that's true. Luckily, our agreement will be that the school district maintains all the facility infrastructure, so.
For 25 years.
Yeah.
Gary, do you have any questions?
No, I've heard a lot of it already, but I am real pleased, Jennifer, to hear that the agreement you have working indeed, as we discussed earlier, is not a triple net lease, that the district will still have some responsibility for facility maintenance, because that's what would kill you. So good job, everybody. Gary's fading, so I will be departing the premise for a much more comfortable location in my RV.
Okay. Thanks, Gary.
Bye, Gary.
Have a good night. Do you have any questions?
Actually, the previous questions that she got around to was asking, I was wondering how easy it was to take over these free community events with, in addition to your already, all the things that you're already doing. Do you have a lot of volunteers, and is that how you manage to get her all done, or?
I work a lot. No, I was able this last year to hire a part-time, she's half events and half care. And so, as you guys know, small agencies, we wear multiple hats. And so she was very helpful with getting these events off the ground. Honestly, if it wasn't for her, it would have been incredibly difficult for us to pull it off. And we were also able to really lean on kind of for a lot of those events, they have history, right? And so we didn't have to do a lot of promotion. And even though we did promotion, because we want people to come into the community, we want people there, but we didn't have to do a fraction of the promotion that we thought we would have to. And even with the Halloween event that, you know, previously I don't think Rotary promoted it in a fashion to where we typically promote it. We just used our email listserv and had 1,500 people there, and it was almost too busy because there was a lot of people who overtook Downtown Sisters. So I can say with the Halloween event, we do, if it wasn't for Rotary and Kiwanis and Band of Brothers, who all showed up that day to provide crossing guards and parade leaders, we wouldn't have been able to do that. The other two events were really staff, and that would be another reason why we're really looking to move it to one day, because our staff have, as you guys know, that it's hard to take over a 4-day holiday weekend for 2 days of events when it's a lot easier ask to, I mean, I guess I can always tell people, but I don't want to have to do that. It's a lot easier ask if it's on a Saturday in one shot versus 2 days over your 4-day weekend. And so, and we're hoping that that'll actually ease some of the stress on the city and some of our partners with that event as well.
Great.
Okay. I don't really have any questions. I am really excited about the one-day event, though. I think it's a great idea. I know we talked about it last year. What do you think? It's a good idea. Obviously, it's better just for logistics.
Yeah.
And I assume we'll have the parade over here on Main.
Yes.
instead. I think that's a great idea. So we're looking forward to that. I had a question about the strategic planning because I know I was part of that process. You know, I know you looked for some help from the outside about helping with that. Is that going well or is that done? Or
Yeah, it got a pause, honestly, with everything going on with the elementary school and the budget and everything. So we're in the last phases of it and should have it finalized in the next month or two.
Yeah, I
So-
mean, I think that obviously with that opportunity at the elementary school, your strategic planning is different than it was.
Of
when we were
course.
Talking last, I guess it was last fall or,
I think within January.
yeah, January.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, thanks for coming. We
Of
appreciate
course.
it. You know, we're here for you. So if you need help, just let us know and, you know, we'll try and be there for you.
Awesome. Well, thank
Yeah,
you.
it'll just be across the street.
I know, I could just
Right.
walk over next
Yeah, right.
time. Awesome, thank you.
Thanks so much.
So that means anytime people come and ask about pickleball, we can just send them to her.
Right, well, it goes both ways, right?
Yeah.
So the third item, can we move that to other business or do you want to do it now?
We could probably fairly quick, up to you.
That's okay. It's up to you guys. If you could, if 5 minutes is enough, let's go ahead.
5
The
minutes.
next item is coordinated houseless response office realignment and Carrie and Andrea.
Okay, so as most of you know, that we are participating in the Coordinated Houseless Response Office. It's a pilot program that came down to the state of Oregon. It's a 2-year program, $2 million to help coordinate what's happening houseless in Deschutes County. So the Coordinator's Houseless Response Office has been deliberating whether the office should remain under the jurisdiction of Deschutes County or be transferred to the oversight of the Central Oregon Intergovernmental Council. So they had hired an executive director. Deschutes County was where Cheyenne Parrington was office lived. She has resigned, and at this point, we are well into the first year, and Andrea can speak to this, but I don't think we're really looking to go out and hire at this point another executive director. And COIC may be better suited to just with their people and how they operate, handle this office. So the Charter Board has made a request to the COIC Board to explore the possibility of having COIC provide functional oversight of this CHR, I'm not sure what we're calling it, the Charter Board, and execute on deliverables required by House Bill 4123. So in their offer, Deschutes County would continue to be the fiscal grant recipient and run the money side of it, and COIC would be the operational side of that. COIC, this letter was sent to COIC, and then it was determined that they really wanted to go back to all of the elected boards, because there is somebody from every city in Central Oregon on the Charter Board, to find out if the elected boards, our council, was comfortable with the move to COIC. So it really was a conversation and a head nod towards whether we should move forward and continue the conversation with COIC. Their board meets, I believe, next week to discuss it, and really wanted to see if there was any board that was not comfortable with that. Andrea can probably fill you in on a little more of those details if there's.
I think that this is the way to go. I don't really see any way to move forward with the dynamic that we had in the past. So I think this is the best shot. COIC is greatly involved in the houseless community activities already. They have the Houseless Coalition people sometimes work with them. They have their own houseless people that work on that, and the gentleman who is working half-time with Charo is an employee of COIC and has worked on the houseless issue for COIC. Tammy Bainey who is the director of COIC, has the respect and the knowledge of the houseless community service providers and the stakeholders in the community. And I think that was one of the main barriers that Cheyenne had, in that she didn't know anybody. And she didn't know the players and who were the movers and shakers and who had the power and who didn't. And so she also had no authority to really require anybody to do anything So it was sort of a very strange position that she was put in. And there was no way of really foreseeing exactly how that was going to work. That's why it's up. I keep telling them, well, that's what pilots are for. To try a dynamic, that doesn't work, then you try another one. Other counties, some other counties are also doing this. Hopefully out of all of us, there will be a way forward that worked best, because everybody's looking for that way. I think that this is the best shot. We can see that there needs to be a group of people that are really working on the issue. And part of the funding will come from this pilot project, but there will be other people that they will be working with that will have more flexibility in what they can do. This legislation has a very small footprint that it allows the money to be used for. And so when people say, oh, well, this is the coordination office for houselessness, that's such a misnomer, in that this office itself cannot really do any service providing. It can't do any of those kinds of things. All it can do is help those who are in that industry and government entities, to bring them together to see what is being done, what's the best way for it to be done, how can we get additional resources where they're needed, all those questions that everybody wants answered. Once again, our board has stopped and reevaluated and is now moving forward with another attempt at having the strategic plan and the leadership plan and the, how, so that if COIC board agrees to take on this project, that they know what we expect. Because that's always the hardest thing, is people say, well, but what exactly do you want us to do? What exactly? Well, we want you to solve all these problems. No, we need to get more, I think we need to get more individually tasked oriented, down to that level a little bit. And it's been a real hard time to try and pull people in that direction, because the members of the board are not all seeing the vision the same. So it's difficult, but I think this is the best chance. I don't see any other way.
Yeah, so the time frame that has been tentatively laid out is that I think we are one of the Lapine and our group are the last that we're having these conversations about the head nod. COIC board meets in July, and the Charo board will meet again as well, with the hope, if COIC wants to move forward, that the Charo board will approve that in August. Does not mean they'll know exactly what it's going to look like, but that at least they've agreed to take over the process. So that's the tentative timeline.
And once it gets into COIC, if they decide to take it, then it'll be them doing the work and the current Charo board kind of giving them goals and things like that, right?
Right,
Right?
yeah. Sort of like what we do with some,
Yeah.
high level kind of stuff.
Well, they have a framework, and that's good. It will siphon some money out of the bigger pot, right? Because they don't
Well,
work for free.
Yeah, absolutely. We
So-
will have a contract,
Yeah, okay.
a service agreement. And, Tammy said, hey, this is what we do. We said,
Well,
what do you think about this? We had her there, made sure she understood, was attending our Charo meeting, so she knew what the dynamic was. Having been a county commissioner, she is uniquely qualified to know what she's up against, having this board that is going to oversee and direct this product. And so she knows how to deal with that, and she knows what getting into, and she still thinks that they can do it and that it's a good idea, and she's energized about doing it. So if she was really hesitant, I would feel differently about it. But I think if it's going to have a shot, this is the best one.
And if this doesn't happen, it all may just die,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
honestly.
Honestly.
Yeah.
And at some point, part of the things that we need to come up with is a way to continue to fund it when this money is
Because it
gone.
is a pilot program.
Right. And so when the money is gone, does the program go away? And hopefully it is a valuable enough tool that I can come back and say, we need X amount of support, maybe per capita, we haven't determined that. And it's worth it because we don't have the same problem that many other communities have, but if they don't solve that problem there, that problem could come here. And it already is sliding a little bit in our direction. So I hope that is what I come back and am able to say when it gets time to determine whether there should be continuing funding.
And I want to ask one more question, and I'll open up to you guys. Is it your opinion that this is the best outcome that we can expect for the city of Sisters and the way we kind of want to handle things? Because we don't do things the way Ben does. We don't do things that Redmond does. Do you think that this is as good outcome as we can hope for just what we need?
It's hard to say how, because whatever issues get dealt with in the county, which our folks are in the county, that we will have to watch very closely because the county commissioners have very, 2-to-1 strategy on how they want to perceive the houseless situation, and from the letter to the governor and different things. You can see where they are going. And I've met with Commissioner Tony DeBone recently, and he's very supportive that we make this office viable, that it serve a strategic purpose within the community, and that hopefully in years to come that we can build on it to the point where we actually have in his an idea of kind of almost like an emergency center, that there are people that are the operations people, people that are the finance people, people that are the shelter people, and that have their various groups that they coordinate with, but that there be a bigger community office, and that this could be the start for something like that. And so, it just remains to be seen if we can all pull together in the same direction. A couple of the people on the board are very in tune with what the other pilot projects are doing as well. And so we're periodically gleaning what's working or not working in other places. We're all so different. It's really hard to say, oh, well, this worked there, but you kind of go, well, I don't know, So it is very unique. And we are very unique in our situation here, and what would work in some areas and in other communities would not be the way. But I think that is recognized in the board. And at this point, it is recognized that there is a significant difference. So I'd say, I would say give the head nod to move forward, and let's see if we can do it.
So you guys have questions?
Remind me the financial structure of it at the moment. It's $1 million, like one-time dump, or is it
Yeah.
for 2 years or 1 year? Or?
It's supposed to cover 2 years, and we're already a year and a plus. So
Okay, so $1 million for 2 years, and then,
Right.
Okay, moving forward. And then my second question is, what kind of, basically the money kind of has to be funneled through the county as per kind of the
kind of think
state
so. I
rules,
think
okay.
that's the way we started, so I think we need to continue down that road.
Okay, how much control does the county have over those funds if at some point somebody or the county, and whatever the county means, doesn't like what they're doing? Can they pull the plug on the funding? Can they, I guess I'm just,
The county administrator and the assistant county administrator have all been significantly available in this process. And yet, they cannot do anything unless our board agrees to do it. That's kind of the way it's set up. But I'm sure that, so I don't anticipate that the staff in some way is gonna say, well, I don't think they're doing the right, COIC's doing the right thing. I think they would come to the board and say something, and then the board would have to vote on it and decide. I was a little concerned when it started because the chair of the board is a county commissioner, and yet the employees are, was working for the board. And I said, well, yeah, but how can that be the way it is when when the chair of the board is actually the boss of the, so it was a little crunchy there for a while, but in operation, people are getting along pretty good. I had concerns about, the city of Bend City Council and the county and how they were going to be able to work together, but they sort of battle it out and come back with a peace plan of a way to move forward. And so I go, okay, you guys are, you have to get along and fix, hopefully we can move forward. So far, they've been able to do it. And so that's a blessing in itself. So,
Well, being on the COIC board.
right, yeah, so you need a special, I can give you.
I was gonna say, there is some hesitancy with
Sure.
certain members, and I don't want to name names
Mhm.
publicly, but I would like to talk to you briefly afterwards.
Sure,
Um,
absolutely.
So to encourage openness to the idea. Yeah.
You bet.
Okay. So you're looking for a head nod to see,
Yes.
just to explore the possibility with COIC?
No, to actually make an offer. We've made the offer, so they want to know that every city council that has a representative on the board is in favor of making this transition.
Okay. And their board obviously will look at it, consider if they're actually gonna do it. We're
Right.
not making the decision for them.
No,
We
we're
are
just
presenting them with this offer.
That's right. Yes.
I don't see any other,
Yeah,
I don't see a whole lot of avenue to go down other than yes. So I'm a yes nod. So you got three over here, and
okay.
so I think everybody says, yeah, let's see how it goes.
Yep.
Keep us up to date. I mean, obviously, we know you're gonna do that anyway, but complicated issues. And I don't think that the county's gonna say no to Tammy. So if Tammy has a good idea and the board supports it, I think that it'll probably end up being paid for if she requests money. That's how I think. So maybe that's good. So, okay, I'm gonna adjourn this, good? All right, I'd like to call to order the July 12th regular city council meeting. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Roll call, Carrie, please.
Mayor Preden,
I'm here.
Council President Blum,
Here.
Councilor Letts,
here,
Councilor Cobb.
Here.
All right, before we move on to the agenda, I want to officially introduce Jordan Wheeler. We call him Wheels around here. No, we don't. New city manager, and this is his first city council meeting, so welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we'll get some comments from you later when we talk about, have staff comments, and maybe you'll be involved in some of this discussion too, we'll see. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I move approval of the agenda.
I second.
We have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. All right, before we go on to visitor communication, I would like to read this statement. Recently, the City Council has been receiving public comments related to Land Use File SP 22-02, a site plan review application for the Space Age gas station. Please be advised that this is an active land use application that is currently under review by the City of Sisters Community Development Department, and it is scheduled to be heard by the Sisters Planning Commission on July 13th, 2023. Prior to that, your comments will be more effective if directed to the city's principal planner, Matt Martin, who will ensure that they are shared with the Planning Commission. This can be done via email or by dropping off your written comments at City Hall Monday through Thursday between 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. or Friday from 7:30 a.m. to noon. As an appellate body, the City Council may be required to hear this application in the future and are therefore advised by the city attorney to try and avoid ex parte communication. Ex parte communication is communication outside of the public record and where the applicant and other participants are not present to hear and potentially dispute the substance of the communication made. According to the Sisters Development Code, participants in a Type 3 hearing are entitled to an impartial review authority as free from potential conflicts of interest and pre-hearing ex parte contacts as possible. Thank you for listening. Next up is the consent, oh, no, visitor communication. Sorry, how many do we have?
We have two.
All
Mark,
right.
Mark Dickens, please.
Mr. Dickens, come forward, please, sir.
Thank you. Jordan, welcome and congratulations on your hiring. My name is Mark Dickens. I live at 133 East Black Crater Avenue here in Sisters. I was planning to speak on something else tonight, but I thought I'd take this opportunity to address some things regarding the DMO, since you heard from Scott Humpert earlier, and while everything is fresh in your mind, I thought this would be a good time to sort of counter some of the things or just add to what he has presented. CATS, as you know, Community Action Team, we have members in our group that have a lot of information about the DMO and how it operated out in Lincoln City. I would encourage all interested parties, excuse me, to do your own due diligence and look into the history of the DMO and how it operated out at Lincoln City. By every reasonable measure, from a citizen's perspective, it was an utter failure. The town revolted, the town didn't like what happened, their town was being exploited. They got up to over 650 short-term rentals. The town eventually did a citizens initiative and shut down all the funding, closed the visitor center, and just threw Scott and his boss and everybody out of town. I'm a little concerned that that could happen here. In December of last year, I remember seeing an article, I think from Sue Stafford, announcing the hiring of Scott Humpert, and just the name, destination, caused red flags with me. So I immediately contacted Scott, did some research, looked up his background, and became more concerned. I met with him after about a week of wrangling at the old chamber building and sat down with him for an hour and asked him all kinds of very reasonable questions and could not get a straight answer out of him. So again, I would really caution the city to really look at the history and how they've operated. I think if you were to take a poll of this community and ask them if they would like their community to become a destination or a community, I think you're going to find overwhelming opposition. The only people that seem to be supportive of this in turning Sisters into something like Sun River is the people that have big financial vested interests, and that's clearly reflected in the board. A lot of the residents in town jokingly call the board a cartel. It's not a board. There's nobody from the nonprofit. There's nobody from the Kiwanis Club. There's nobody from the school. There's nobody from a community organization. It's all people that have big financial vested interests in making money. And I don't think Sisters wants to go through the upheaval of having a citizens initiative done to shut down this DMO. So again, I didn't bring all my data. I wasn't planning to talk about this tonight, but I would say don't take my word for it. Don't take Scott's word for it. Do your own due diligence. Look, research. There's a lot of available information. The folks that ran the Citizens Initiative out in Lincoln City are actually consulting with other towns all over the state of Oregon and actually towns out of state to help them do very similar things to protect their town and make sure that it does not become a destination and that it's not branded. And I've talked to give you an example, recently I've talked to a few of the commercial lodge owners, John and Vicki Hornbeck, that own the Metolius Lodges cabins, about 20 years, Scott and Nicole, that own the Left Coast Lodge, and they're all opposed to this. They say, we don't need the room tax, we don't need to spend hundreds of thousands of dollars a year marketing Sisters. We're already on the map, we're already a destination. And they're concerned that what happens with this marketing is that it brings in a lot of outside investment, a lot of speculation, which results in this proliferation of these short-term rentals, which really has a very devastating adverse impact on our housing stock, our availability. And then those STRs that are owned overwhelmingly by out-of-state investors compete with the local businesses, the local lodges, bed and breakfasts, et cetera. So the last point I'll make here is that if you do, again, some research, you'll see that any credible economists will say that a healthy housing market is directly correlated to a healthy local job market. And when you get away from promoting Sisters and employers and making it a community and you turn it into a destination, you are distorting the housing market. You are no longer maintaining that healthy correlation between the local job market that's reflected in the housing market. You've now turned the residential housing market into this investment speculation because people are looking at the town now as a destination and tourism. And I don't think we want that to happen. Sisters is already faced with enormous challenges for housing. So I'll be happy to put some information together. I'll submit it to the city and it can be disseminated around. I think you'll find it's very valid, it's very legitimate, and I think this should be proceeded with a lot of caution. And if you have any doubt, I would say send Bill Bartlett out around town to do another poll again and ask people, do they want their town to be like a Sun River, a destination resort, or a community? And I think you're going to see the overwhelming response. Thank you very much for your time.
Michael?
Many of the prevailing socialized people will have their commandeering frame points of view of someone as unfit as I am, unfit for your panorama of a conscience-limited way of life with its behavioral psychology replacing real humanity and where I come from. Now, even more so than before, I keep direct interactions minimal with you, the people. I do need to explain, though, and here's a good recent example, how my small association with someone can turn out to be seen by them as contradictory from where I was coming from. A barmaid thought I was ridiculing her when speaking to someone else, when I was ridiculing myself as an American expectation of needing baseball on television. When on previous times I have spoken to her completely platonically about this upside down society, etc., that getting slammed by an unexpected fastball should be considered a blessing. A woman from Eugene, now into her 70s, who lived in Redmond a few years until her first husband passed, used that expression, a blessing, when hearing these sort of situations I experience. I just spoke to the youngest of her 3 children 2 months ago when I was in Eugene. He knows me back to 2006, and unfortunately, he's too far away to be the public witness with the Deschutes County Commissioner, then the psychiatrist, etc. Though when speaking with him, and he's been married to the same woman for 30 years, and illuminating society with my contrasting situation and the people's artificial conscience, artificial heart, artificial humanity with art as a replacement, and the perverted hollow liberal progressiveness, etc., and how every day it gets worse, and people like Putin, China, and many Muslims, etc., don't buy into any small part of your moralities. They are part of the society's immoral foundation. He got it. I also mentioned how your behavioral, sociopathic, controlling evil ratchets exploit and rape my mind into meaningless chaos, which can exhaustively jump on and off, all because I have a real conscience. These things he fully understood. No surprise to me that he's not of your educated intellectual type. He being from a young age part of what Counselor Ross calls professional technical classes. I personally prefer calling it shop class, or better yet, the genuine class. Those who might still operate a bit like real people. Not androids, not privileged artists, not insects, not disconnected brains, or someone like myself who does not know how to queue into a pub because Toto, we're just not even in a real Western town no more. And the outdoors is where my heart might be a little safer, at least somewhere over the rainbow. And Toto, I wish I could say, I'm off to see the wizard, who will go see a county commissioner with me, then a psychiatrist, so things are put into gear so I can one day move on. Because what's around me is a polished horror show that's more unbelievable than what they put on your movie screens. Lala would understand, Toto. And Toto, I know why she was given such a culturally unsymmetrical name to her true essence. It's to throw those modern wicked evil witches off track, as she looked for what I have been looking for in the land of double-crossing, gunshots, and talented robots. And someone who's raped and in shock and is not here to take cheap shots. I'm not here to take cheap shots. Just tell the truth and get someone to do what any real human would have done seriously long ago. I'm doing it whether I like it or not, because it's a very necessary and very just cause. And that's how a real adult operates. Right, Lala?
Thank you, Michael. Next up is the consent agenda. We need a motion of some
There
type,
is none, is there?
or is there none? So there is none.
So
Never
there's
mind. Sorry, didn't read close enough. All right, on to council business. First up is Resolution 2023-12, application for a grant from DLCD. Scott, Director of Community Development. How's it going?
It's going great. How are you?
Okay.
Good evening, everyone. So this is a request for a resolution of support for a submission of a grant to the Department of Land Conservation and Development for some housing planning assistant grant funds. Just recently, through the effort of the governor to increase housing production in the state to address our affordable housing and other housing issues, there was a provision, an approval for a tranche of funds to help support communities in the efforts to increase housing production, affordability, and choice. And among the eligible projects are some projects that we might have interest in the future, and some things on our work plan and our council goals, which is to investigate the feasibility of a urban growth boundary amendment. The decision has not been made, as we all know, but the need has been, potential need, I should say, has been demonstrated through the housing needs analysis that we did through the comprehensive plan process. So there's an identified need. We went through the efficiency measures process to see how we can be more efficient with our land to address some of those housing needs within our existing boundaries. The direction from council was to update our UGB sufficiency report and then take a fresh look at what those numbers tell us in terms of the need. And then we would make a decision at that point. That process that we were doing to update the UGB sufficiency report looks like it'll probably end in the fall. This opportunity to potentially offset some city budgeted funds with some grant funds is due at the end of this month. Because there was the availability of these funds, staff thought it was something that we should at least take a look at. The timing isn't real great because we haven't made that decision as a community. But should we do make that decision, there's a great opportunity to help offset the cost of that process, which is not cheap, takes 18 to 24 months, requires the hiring of a consultant, and my most accurate estimates for how much that costs, that might cost, is around $175,000. So availability of some grant funds would be great to help offset that. We do have some funds budgeted for contract services should we go down that path. So we don't need the grants necessarily, and this will straddle 2 fiscal years. So the remaining portion of those funds could be budgeted in the following fiscal year. So just trying to be a responsible steward of city funds, I thought I'd put this forward to the council to see if there was support for going forward with this. I talked to officials with DLCD about kind of the issue with the timing and what they'd recommend. And they said that it would be their recommendation that you apply for it, get it, and determine you don't need it versus not applying for it and then later finding out that you do need it. The grants, whether or not we were successful in the grant, would be we would get notification at the end of September, and then we go into some contract negotiations with them to solidify the grant agreement. But that would all take place probably later this year. So the timing may be right if we identify the need to go forward, that we could take advantage of these. If the council, after all the kind of the information, you'd elect to not go forward at this time, we can always pivot to a potential different housing project, or we could just elect to say thanks but no thanks to the funds. We do have a couple other ideas in terms of what we could use the funds for. One is, the state law now requires that any housing, needed housing, which is basically any housing in your community, your development code standards have to be clear and objective, so that those projects, when they come forward, it's an easier process. It's a more clear process for them. We do have I think some instances in our code where our provisions are not clear and objective, so we could always use those funds to help with the consultant to rewrite some of those provisions. Or we could just elect to not take advantage of the funds at this time. So hopefully that's clear. Hopefully it's clear to the community that this does not mean that we are going forward with the urban growth boundary amendment, but just trying to be responsible and take advantage of these potential funds. And that's why I'm before you tonight. But the grant application does require a resolution of, or some demonstration of support by the city council that there is support for the staff going forward with this grant request. Any questions I can?
It looks like you got one right off the bat.
I do.
Right?
So we're applying for a grant that we are saying in our resolution, it has to do with the UGB situation, but we don't have to spend it on that? We can spend it on other things?
That's correct.
Okay, so the grant itself doesn't require that this is how we spend the money?
No. And
Okay.
that was something I made, that's a point that I actually asked directly to our local DLCD rep, who kind of batted around other housing folks at the department and recognized what our situation was and offered those opportunities or alternatives for the use of the funds, should we elect to not go forward with the amendment.
Go ahead.
I don't have a question. I just want to compliment you on your forward thinking and looking to finding funding in advance, whether or not we do the UGB funding that could possibly be used for something else. I think it's an excellent idea, and I thank you.
What do you think the odds are of us winning the grant?
Of being successful?
Yeah.
It sounds pretty promising. You know, they have a prioritization matrix or criteria that they're going to use in determining which ones are successful or not. You know, the first alternative or the first priority is those changes that have been required by state statute. Also, you know, those which you know, the clear and objective standards is a result of a state law. So if we did it for that, we would be responding directly to something that has come down from the state. And I think that one of the other high criteria is if we're addressing a demonstrated housing need as identified by a housing needs analysis. So I don't know the quality of all the other applications, but I think we have a pretty solid case.
And it said that, you know, it would be best if there was a match. Do you have a recommendation of what that match should be?
I don't at this time, but I put in some, you know, some numbers that might spur some discussion, like a 10% match, you know, what that would equate to, a 20% match. It's also noted in there that it's acceptable to have in-kind match for staff time or other things similar to that. So there'd be quite a bit of staff time involved in handling something like this. So we could always identify that as the match if we wanted to. So
Would we be saying, oh, our match is $25,000? Would we have to say, but that 10,000 would be in kind, or do they delineate it?
No, we could definitely, I think, kind of frame it up any way we want. There's no minimum
But we
requirement.
don't have to do that now.
I don't think we have to identify it now.
Okay.
No.
I have one more question.
Sure.
I didn't understand why, if we had a 10% match, that we got more money than if we had a 20% match. It seems like if we had a 20% match, we would be getting more money than the reverse. Maybe I don't understand.
Maybe my numbers were
We're only
We're
asking
off.
for a certain amount, I think.
so. Well, it's all backing. It was meant to back off from the 175. So if you're asking for, if you need 175 and you were going to put 10% in, we'd put 17,500 in,
Got it.
and then we'd ask for 160.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Got it.
All right. Seems like nobody wants to talk about UGB expansion, but I like to be an adult about this and talk about that a little bit. Right now, our urban growth boundary is basically the same size as this city. That's a true statement, right? The second thing is an urban growth boundary expansion does not necessarily mean annexation. That's a separate process. And an urban growth boundary is also a way to plan for lands coming in, not tomorrow generally, but 5, 10, 20 years down the road, right? I just want to say this out loud because I think it's the proper thing to do. The Woodlands, if I remember our conversations right, that was brought in 1979, if I remember the date. It was a long time ago. It took, over 40 years to bring that in.
You're talking McKenzie Meadows?
No.
Woodlands?
The Woodlands itself was brought into the UGB and was urban what was that called, reserve, urban area reserve for a long time, knowing that it was probably become part of the city down the road. So again, I just hate not talking about it when you have an opportunity to talk about something that may be a little uncomfortable, which is we can't grow at all unless we have urban growth boundary growth first. So we can't even decide if we're going to annex anything until we have the conversation about the urban growth boundary. And that is all talked about in our 2021 comprehensive plan amendment. It's not a surprise. You have to have these discussions, whether they're uncomfortable to some or not, to do some of this stuff. I appreciate what Councilor Cobb said. I appreciate you looking at this and finding this grant, and that it's flexible is just a bonus, actually. I think that our housing needs show that we probably are going to need some land coming up down the road, maybe not in 5 or 10 years or even longer possibly, but we have to plan for these things. Otherwise, it's possible that we could fail miserably, and the town can't get any bigger, and we need more housing, and then it's too late. So thanks for putting up with that statement. More than anything, I just like to put that in the record because it's important for people to know this, that we're not just planning to grow the city for no reason or anything like that. We've been going through this process. We started the comprehensive plan, I think we started in 2019, started that process. So we've been talking about this a long time. We need to keep finding different ways, some within the city and some without, to plan for growth. As uncomfortable as it can be, and I get it. So thank you. I don't have any more discussion on this. Does anybody else have anything?
I would like to add that I agree with you, the mayor, that it is a hard discussion, but it's a necessary discussion. And it's something we have to, as adults, look at and not, fear the fact that people are going to come here and buy property and make businesses. And yeah, I totally agree.
Okay. All right. So the next item would be a motion if people wanted to make one. Thank you, Scott. I guess there's no more questions.
Sure.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I have what do you think about this, Jordan?
There you go. Get the city manager involved.
Yeah, I think it would be wise to move forward with requesting the grant funds. Correct me if I'm wrong, but we did budget for proceeding with UGB expansion if that decision was made, and doing the analysis. So there is funds in the budget for the match, so I don't think we're worried about that. And I think when you have dollars hanging out there, and this is the opportunity before the door shuts, and it's inevitable. The state will, keep cities' feet to the fire on making sure that we have an adequate supply of future housing and accommodating growth. And so either it's going to be in the next 2 years or sometime in, on the horizon that we're going to have to pursue this and do the analysis. So right now the state's funding a lot of these studies and pushing housing, and I think the time is now to take advantage of it, and the council will be, of course, taking up the topic and decision whether to proceed with the analysis, but I think it's wise to pursue the grant.
I mean, being stewards of the people's money here
Absolutely.
in the city of Sisters, that's $175,000 or so. Okay.
I would move approval of resolution 2023-12.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any final discussions or? Okay, let's have a vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, so moved, passed. All right,
Thank you.
on to staff comments.
Jordan,
hey, you want to start, city manager?
Well, obviously this one's going to be short.
5 days, come on now.
Just to repeat what I said earlier, I've really enjoyed meeting with staff and the council, of course, and a few others. A lot of meetings. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Joe. They've been doing a great job of catching me up, and I feel like I'm getting the crash course that I need to be brought up to speed. I'm really enjoying that. Looking forward to some other things coming up. I've been invited to a lot of different groups and organizations that would like to come in and have me speak or meet. Obviously, I'm going to be learning and listening a lot these first couple months, which I am enjoying. But yeah, a lot of great things are happening. The city's in a good place, and it feels good to be here and support staff, support the council, and I think I picked a really good time to arrive too in the middle of summer. So thank you. Enjoying my time so far and looking forward to all the good work we're going to be doing together.
Okay, can I set you up?
Sure.
If, let's say you had a microphone in front of you and you could say, what would your message be to the people of the City of Sisters? Oh, I'm sorry.
Stay tuned.
Yeah,
stay tuned. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help that. Thanks, Jordan. Does anybody have any questions for Jordan? All right. Gary?
Who's your favorite counselor
Yeah.
so far?
I have, believe it or not, I have 5 favorites.
Sure.
I was gonna ask that later.
I just have a couple of things really quickly. The LOC conference is October 12th through 14th. I did send an email. Councilor Letts is attending, and I've heard from College Mayor. I have not heard from you. It opens tomorrow morning, and the rooms will be gone probably by 9 tomorrow morning. So if you would like to attend, please.
I'm a yes.
Okay. And then I will make those.
Throw me in there.
I will try to get those reservations as early as I can.
I'm not going to New England this year, so.
Okay. So that was my.
I'm not sharing a room with
for-
No, we're not sharing a room.
No, we are not.
Not even the same floor if you can help it. No, I'm just kidding.
And then I want to let you all know that Dave Moyer's memorial is July 22nd at the high school from 11 to 2. And apparently they're going to be serving desserts because that was his favorite thing. So
Nice.
Yeah,
Sweet.
that's all I have.
Okay, any questions for Carrie? All right. Joe? You gotta walk up to the microphone.
A long walk, Joe.
Steps in. All right. Well, Happy New Year. Happy fiscal New Year, right? So that brings a lot of different things. So for finance, we're updating utility rates, and that means commercial EDUs. A lot of payroll PERS rates are updated, and there's a lot of stuff behind the scenes that comes with that. So been working on that quite a bit lately. Also been working with our new auditors already. I had a few meetings with them. They are fantastic with their communication, I must say, and just their process. One of the things they wanted me to talk to you about was, those fraud questionnaires that you're used to getting in the mail. Those are likely going to be emailed to you from them. And so that's not a phishing or spam or anything like that. That's one of those things where it's a legitimate link, but it'll be kind of like a survey style. So I can send you some more information on that if you'd like.
So that curricula is legitimate.
That is legitimate. Yeah, that's part of our software security, cybersecurity campaigns. I actually did mine today. I missed one.
I missed one as well.
Yeah,
Apologies
so.
for telling everybody that it was spam.
I know. Yeah, sorry. I shouldn't have said that on public record. There's a couple hard ones in
I'm
there.
gonna be honest, I deleted those emails.
That's okay. That's fine. You'll keep getting them if you don't complete the course.
Right.
So,
I can delete them further.
but we're just, again, we're just trying to be as mindful of, as we can for cybersecurity, especially as a city.
Question?
Yes.
What exactly is it we're supposed to be doing with those?
So that is kind of a training
Of,
video, and then with a little quiz. So you click on it with the code, and then it kind of walks you through a little bit of training, what phishing is, what, spear phishing is.
security,
Yep, it's for cybersecurity. Yeah. I know there's a lot of terms. Yeah, it's a good educational experience. Fly or something.
all right.
Anyway, yep. So with the auditors, we also kind of set a field work date of September 13th. That'll just be one day as opposed to kind of a week is what we're used to with our former auditors. So that'll lend itself to a little bit more just kind of flexibility with staff. They'll do a lot of their testing at that time and internal control. learning and things of that nature. So, and like I think I said to you before, they also performed the audit for Lapine, so they're going to kind of coincide that field work with ours. And yeah, and then just with, you know, just like to acknowledge Dave and his many roles for the city, but one of them, as you know, was with the Budget Committee. He was a fantastic representative of that committee, lent a lot of great experience with where we've been in the past, especially from a financial perspective. So I think we appreciated that tremendously amongst a lot of other great things that he brought to this city. So he'll be missed greatly. So it'll be nice to kind of celebrate that, his life in the coming weeks. That's all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
Do we have any questions for Joe? Sorry, we took the interim stuff away from you.
That's okay.
You could be interim dog catcher.
Back to work. That's right.
Interim dog catcher. We don't have one of those, so we
Dog catcher? Oh, boy.
interim though.
Yeah, yeah, of course. Yeah, so the charter says.
All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate all you do. Scott? One more time, buddy. Sorry, I should have started off with you. You're already there. I apologize. I didn't do very well.
I think I talked about the UGB sufficiency report, I believe, in enough detail last go around, so I won't go into that again. We do have a planning commission meeting tomorrow night on the space age. That's the continuation of the June 15th hearing. It's okay, you can hear that part. It was very well attended the first go around. In fact, we had people in the conference room watching on Zoom.
That's still the hottest topic that I get.
Yeah.
Well, I get more questions about space.
We're still getting letters to this day, so it's.
And that's fine. I'm not saying that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just the reality.
It's the public process playing out. Yeah.
We do.
Yeah. We wanted to let council know that we're going to do a contract with Dark Skies Consulting Group. It's a very small contract. That's why it was below the threshold of having council bringing it to council for your approval. But it's a group that it's actually not a group. It's one guy. He's a former astrophysicist, or pretty smart guy. But he's in the consulting business for lighting, for dark skies, for communities. And so I thought it would be helpful to have his expertise help guide us and advise our ordinance as we bring the dark skies ordinance back through, to help offer his expertise on communities that he's worked in, best practices. And there's a handful of threshold issues that are somewhat still up in the air in terms of resolution. I think that he could help us out a lot with that. So wanted to let you guys know that you might see him in a future meeting, providing some of his expertise. You may have read today that we did get an application from the Sisters Cold Weather Shelter. It was actually just before the end of June, for a emergency shelter on a property you read about in the paper today, probably. It's being submitted in accordance with House Bill 2006, which establishes provisions for how shelters could be sited, and the criteria that a city can use to review those. The paper made it sound like maybe that it was a done deal already. It's not a done deal, because the city hasn't approved that application yet. But just wanted to draw your attention to that, and it's a new thing for us. I've been weighing on the housing director in Redmond on their experience, because they've gone through this several times and have created some templates for these processes, and created an application that we were able to use to give to these applicants, because we're kind of creating all this on the go and never really done this. So we're using their kind of experience to help inform ours.
You still have friends over there, huh?
Well, in fact, interestingly enough, it's Linda Klein, who used to be here in Sisters with C4C, took that position over there. So, and then I've told you this before. We're going full bore after we get kind of through some of these land use applications that are tying up Planning Commission's time a bit with development code amendments. So which will eventually end up in your venue here shortly, and we'll be doing some work sessions, probably take advantage of some open work sessions in September and October to bring those forward to you guys.
Question.
Yes.
So you just said the word emergency shelter, right? Is what you said? Okay. The Nugget somewhat buried the lead in that story because it kind of sounded like a full-time homeless shelter until you read the word seasonal in paragraph 5. I wish it had been written a little more clearly that it was on the emergency side of it. Yeah, I know. I know. Trust me, I know. But I just want to highlight that because we're not talking about a homeless shelter that's running 24 hours a day or anything like that. This is an emergency shelter for times such as warming in the winter, or a cold weather shelter, or in the other times when it's for cooling or for smoke, right? I mean, that's pretty much the gist of the shelter portion of that project. Is that correct?
So I'm still investigating what the bill really requires, or what it allows and what it doesn't allow. I'm not sure that it's emergency in the under the kind of the guise of how we've been using it here yet or not, but
Okay.
more to
Fair
be
enough.
more to be investigated here.
That is very fair. Thank you.
They do use the term emergency, but I'm not sure it's apples and apples
I got
compared to
you.
how we use it.
I understand. I see what you're saying. Okay. Well, we'll find out, I guess.
We will find out. Yes.
Thank you. Go ahead.
So in the development code amendments, I just want confirmation that we're going to be looking at STR code and some hardening codes, correct?
Yeah, definitely. We have a whole slew of development code amendments that we could bring forward, but we are prioritizing the ones that were council goals.
Okay.
So those are among those.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Cool. Any other questions for Scott? Thank you. Good job. Wasn't
Thank you.
trying to hit you up hard there. Wasn't trying to do that. Sorry. Good. All right. Other business?
Yeah.
Mayor, councilor business. Sound good? Did we miss anything?
I thought tonight, I was gonna ask for some way that we could converse as a council. But as we went through this meeting tonight, there was a lot more conversing than I feel I've noticed before. And so I appreciated that. And I just wanted to say that I appreciate that. It seems like a lot of times we're up here and, you know, we're counselors, but we don't really counsel with each other. And so I thought tonight was better at that.
I can tell you why.
Okay.
Gary's not here. So, no, I'm kidding. I hope he's asleep. No, you're right. Sometimes we're just so busy with a really packed agenda that we are trying to keep the meeting short and blowing through things a little bit. There's no doubt about that. Tonight's agenda obviously was a little light. And obviously we're trying to all be Jordan's favorite, so we have to, you know, be nice and stuff. But I agree. I mean, I wish we had more opportunity to just kind of have an open discussion and stuff like that, but we generally don't have the time to do that. Is that fair, Andrea, do you think? I mean, you know, when we have an agenda that's got 7 ordinances on it, we don't, you know, we're trying to rip through it and still get home by 9:30. So this is kind of a unique evening for sure. It does make it a little more relaxed. The weather's good too. There's lots of different reasons.
And when you have work sessions, I think that is what they're all about, is kind of asking those kind of uncomfortable questions and stuff. By the time it gets to the regular council meeting, the uncomfortableness is something that theoretically has already been worked out. The questions that you were concerned about. So I try not to bring those kinds of questions to the council.
Right.
Try and get that worked out before we get here. Sometimes we, I'm sure he doesn't know that, but about us, we pontificate quite a bit here periodically, but
We can.
yeah. So, yeah, so try not to give too many speeches, but especially when there's public hearings and there's a lot of people in the audience. But I agree, it is, when I first started on council, we had our work sessions in the little conference room right over there. And you had to move up like this because the public was, your knees were right in your back. And Sue would often sit right next to me, and we'd pass papers back and forth sometimes, you know. And so it was much more open and free discussion. And sometimes we got in hot water about that open and free discussion. And so you kind of live and learn a little bit about that too. But I agree. It is, you get to know people better and where they stand on things and why. And sometimes when it's just you're taking a vote, you don't necessarily know why somebody feels so strongly about something because you don't feel that free to.
Well, and
go into
also, I just feel that as counselors, we should be able to deliberate with each other about, you know, if there's a difference in opinion, to be able to discuss that amicably. And I know it's only in workshops that should happen, but this is the first time, in my experience, there was more conversation. And I think the mayor's absolutely correct. We just had some really, ever since I've been on January, we've just had pretty filled, you know.
It was budget season,
Yeah.
it was planning season, we did a lot, I mean.
Yeah, it's been a lot. And our temporary manager and Carrie have just been, you know, rock stars at pulling it all together. So I appreciate that perspective, Mayor.
Okay. You have anything else, or, all right, so we'll move on, no offense. Jennifer, you got anything?
Yeah, I attended the vision implementation team meeting this afternoon, and being that they're kind of still quarterly, and a new executive interim director for C4C, so Kellen Klein, so he was kind of getting his feet underneath him, but I think the moral of the story, and Jordan got to attend, and Scott as well, so you can correct me, but I think the overarching discussion was just keeping the sisters' vision relevant, keeping it in people's minds, you know, keeping it in you know, in the media, or you know, highlighting stories, but also revisiting not really necessarily the core tenets. There's kind of 4 core tenets of the organization, but you know, the secondary elements below that. You know, some of those things we've actually checked off the list, and over the last 5 years, which is great. I need to celebrate that. Some things still working on, and some things need to be added, or we feel we need to be adding. So they're going to, C4C is going to take all that input and work on kind of moving towards highlighting more of the projects more publicly. And also, you know, it was supposed to be a living document, so kind of revisiting, you know, some of the work plan level things, and places we should be more focused on moving forward. And the only other thing, I'm assuming some of you did this as well, I went to the quilt show. That went off wonderfully as far as I could see and experience, so.
I missed the Beatles. Somehow.
Oh, I saw
I
it.
missed it.
I didn't even know, it took me a while to figure out what was going on. I was like, oh, Beatles. But no, amazing artwork and so much talent out there, and a lot of people having a good time,
Yeah.
spending money.
Yeah. They
So,
filled the town for
yeah, it was a great
all
day.
Saturday, right? And then before,
And after,
and I think after too.
yeah.
And that is a primo example of how we want to have events that bring the right kind of tourist, that are respectful of the community, that, you know, that don't trash the town kind of people. And
Our trash cans were full, there's no
oh
doubt
yeah,
about that.
yeah.
And there was some spillage in certain areas, and when I saw it, I, you know, pick it up, but at the same time, I mean, we can't have the trash people coming 5 times a day. We don't have that kind of budget to do that.
Right.
I mean, so we'll just do the best we can, and maybe maybe we can have a little more emphasis on garbage, a tiny bit more, and have a few extra cans or something. Who knows? But I mean, it was minor. It was minor, really minor. Back to the vision, though. Sounds like the vision needs a vision, a little. You know what I mean? Just to like a refocus or something.
Yeah, a
Vision
little
is out
bit.
of focus.
Yeah,
I
it's-
know. I'm sorry.
It's still very relevant. I think we kind of agreed that, we're not at the place of other, visioning organizations that, hey, we made this great vision, and then it goes on a shelf and disappears. Like, we are definitely not in that area, and
Yeah.
but we are wary of moving into that, I think, and so, we
Right,
want to keep
because
it relevant and,
quarterly meetings can turn to once a year and then nothing happens
Yeah.
after that,
Yeah.
so.
yeah, so.
I
yeah.
appreciate the work you're doing on that, and, thanks.
Wonderful.
Anything else? Any questions for Jennifer?
No, I've talked enough.
Yeah, me too. I got a couple tiny things. Speaking before Rotary on Tuesday next week. Bill Riley, I think is his name, is the president, asked me to speak, and he wants to know what the, city's vision is and plan for the next year. So I'm going to take our goal sheet and talk about some of those things, and then just do a Q&A, and it's probably like 40 minutes. And he wanted to meet the city manager, and I invited Jordan, and I don't know if you're going, or we can even ride together if you want. Save a little bit of gas to go out there, and I'll introduce him and let him speak for a little bit, and that'll be less time I have to do questions and answers. But I thought it was funny. He said, do you need a computer and a projector? And I'm like, no, I'm a politician. I can just give me a mic and I'm good. So that's what I'm doing.
You don't have a slide deck?
No, God, no, I don't want it. I just take my elevator speech and I go.
Yeah, massage it for.
But, the goals are on the website, right? And so I love telling people that, and that'll probably be the first thing I tell them. I say, hey, look, I don't mind speaking here. I want to be personable, but it's right there. And so I tell a lot of people that, and I have to remember to print it out before Tuesday. So I wanted to highlight something that I was talking about with Jordan and Carrie at our first meeting, city manager meeting last week, and about the neighbor impact $15,000 that we gave them to help with food security. It's a really cool thing. Most of that money's going to come back and help us through the food bank. We don't have breakouts about what's for what, but neighbor impact is a huge deal in our county. They're the region food bank that gets the food to the food bank, right? So our local food bank and other local food banks, and they do a lot more than that. And we're pretty proud about this 15,000. I mean, this is just another small nugget of stewardship of the people's money for equitable reasons. And unfortunately, with inflation and stuff, food security is even a bigger issue now. We don't want people hungry. If there's people that are hungry, or people that, we want to be able to help them. And I think this is a good way to do it. And thank you, Carrie, for doing a lot of that work. But it's really all of us. We all do it, right? We're all part of it. So anything that happens in Joe's department, we can celebrate all around. Anything that happens in Scott's or Paul's. We didn't get to hear from Paul because he's not in town right now. So. But anyway, that's all I really have, other than thank you for gifts for the Oregon Mayor's Association scholarship silent auction basket thing I'm doing. I've got some things. I'm going to get something from you, and I got something for you already. Carrie's got something for me. So I appreciate that. That's the second week of August. And I'll have the city council meeting, and then I'll be going to Hood River that weekend for the OMA and Oregon Mayors Association Conference. And I get to learn a few things that mayors get to do. Some of them get to do a lot more than I am, because I'm not an elected mayor and I'm appointed mayor. But there are some little things that I learn, and hopefully I can bring home some nuggets for us.
So you'll be a little puffed up, maybe?
Man, that first year I was puffed up. That was down in Coos Bay, North Bend, and that was really fun. So.
Good, I hope it is.
Hood River's a cool little
Yeah.
town, so I'm gonna have fun there too, so.
Absolutely.
I think that's all I have, so let's just go home.
Yeah. Checks, nobody goes home.
No checks.